What if I told you that the bread you're eating today has less than half the nutrition of the bread your grandparents ate? That there were grains once considered essential for human health that have completely vanished from grocery stores? Grains that prevented diseases, extended lifespans, and grew so reliably that entire civilizations were built on them. Most people don't know this, but around 1960, something changed in our food system. Ancient grains that had fed humanity for thousands of years suddenly disappeared from shelves, replaced by a handful of modern varieties bred for profit, not health. And today, I'm going to show you 12 of these forgotten grains that could revolutionize your health and explain exactly why they vanished. Stick around, because number 9 on this list was so powerful at preventing heart disease that it was a staple food in societies where heart attacks were virtually unknown. And number 12 is so nutrient-dense that a single serving contains more protein than a steak and more calcium than milk, yet you've probably never even heard of it. Hey there, health seekers and nutrition detectives. If you're new here, welcome. We're all about uncovering the real food wisdom that got buried under decades of food industry marketing and government policy. The kind of knowledge that kept people healthy before processed food took over. Make sure you hit that subscribe button right now because we post videos every week that'll change how you think about food, health, and what you're putting in your body. And to those of you who've been here before, thank you. Your comments about how this information has changed your health inspire every video I make. Keep those stories coming because they help more people than you know. Today we're talking about ancient grains. And this will make you angry. Because once you see what was taken from us, you'll never look at the bread aisle the same way. In the 1950s and 60s, the Green Revolution replaced thousands of nutritious, resilient grains with a few high-yield varieties built for machines, shipping, and profit. Shorter stems, stronger gluten, longer shelf life, and what was lost? Nutrition, flavor, digestibility. Real food fed civilizations for thousands of years, then vanished in a single generation. But they still exist, and once you bring them back, you won't go back. So let's get into it. Here are 12 ancient grains that prevent disease, ranked from impressive to absolutely life-changing, and I'll explain exactly why each one vanished from stores in 1960. Number 1, let's start with einkorn wheat. This is the most ancient wheat known to humanity, first domesticated over 10,000 years ago. Einkorn has only 14 chromosomes compared to modern wheat's 42, which makes it dramatically easier to digest. People who have gluten sensitivity often can tolerate einkorn because the gluten structure is completely different from modern wheat. Studies show that einkorn contains higher levels of protein, essential fatty acids, phosphorus, potassium, and B vitamins than modern wheat. It's also rich in lutein, a powerful antioxidant that protects eye health. The grains are small and golden, and when you bake with einkorn flour, the bread has this incredible nutty, slightly sweet flavor that makes modern wheat taste like cardboard. So why did it disappear? Yield. Einkorn produces about half as much grain per acre as modern wheat. The stems are tall, so they don't work well with mechanical combines. And the grain is harder to thresh, meaning it takes more work to separate from the hull. In 1960, when industrial farming was taking over, einkorn was seen as inefficient. Never mind that it was more nutritious. Never mind that it had sustained humans for 10,000 years. It didn't fit the industrial model, so it was abandoned. But for your body, einkorn is gold. It's the wheat that our digestive systems actually evolved to process. Number 2 is spelt, which was the primary grain of Europe from the Bronze Age through the Middle Ages. Spelt is an ancient cousin of modern wheat with a completely different nutritional profile. It's higher in protein than modern wheat, with all 8 essential amino acids. It contains high levels of niacin, which is crucial for heart health and metabolism. Spelt is also rich in fiber, both soluble and insoluble, which means it helps control blood sugar and supports digestive health. The flavor is slightly nutty and naturally sweet, and spelt flour makes incredible bread with a texture that's hearty but not heavy. People with wheat sensitivities often tolerate spelt better because the gluten is more fragile and water-soluble, making it easier to digest. So why did spelt vanish? Same story as einkorn, lower yields than modern wheat, taller stems that lodge, meaning they fall over before harvest, and a hull that's harder to remove, requiring an extra processing step. When industrial farming prioritized efficiency over nutrition, spelt was abandoned. By 1960, it had almost completely disappeared from American farms. But in your body, spelt performs like wheat is supposed to. It provides sustained energy without blood sugar spikes. It satisfies hunger longer. And it doesn't cause the inflammation that modern wheat triggers in so many people. Number 3. Kamut, which is the brand name for Khorasan wheat. This is an ancient grain from the Fertile Crescent, with kernels twice the size of modern wheat. Kamut has a rich, buttery flavor that makes it delicious on its own. But here's what makes it special for health. Studies have shown that kamut reduces inflammatory markers in the blood better than modern wheat. Research from Italy found that people who switched from regular wheat to kamut experienced significant reductions in cholesterol, blood sugar, and inflammatory cytokines. Kamut is also exceptionally high in selenium, a mineral that's crucial for thyroid function and immune health. It contains more zinc, magnesium, and vitamin E than modern wheat, and the protein quality is superior, with better ratios of essential amino acids. So why did kamut disappear? It's photosensitive, meaning it only produces well in specific climates and day lengths. It needs low humidity to thrive, so it couldn't be grown in the humid wheat-growing regions that dominated by 1960, and the large kernels meant it needed different milling equipment than standard wheat. The industrial food system wanted uniformity, one grain that could grow anywhere and process the same way. Kamut didn't fit that model, so it was abandoned. But for people dealing with inflammation, metabolic issues, or autoimmune conditions, kamut might be one of the most therapeutic grains available. Number 4 is amaranth, and this one's special because it's not technically a grain at all. It's a pseudo-grain that was sacred to the Aztecs and a staple throughout the Americas. Amaranth is a complete protein containing all essential amino acids, which is rare for plant foods. It's exceptionally high in lysine, an amino acid that's typically low in grains. 1 cup of cooked amaranth provides 9 grams of protein and 5 grams of fiber. But here's what makes amaranth remarkable. It's one of the highest plant sources of calcium, with more calcium per serving than milk. It's loaded with iron, magnesium, and phosphorus, and it contains squalene, a compound usually found in shark liver oil that has powerful anti-cancer and anti-inflammatory properties. Studies have shown that amaranth can lower cholesterol, reduce blood pressure, and help prevent diabetes. The grain is tiny, about the size of a poppy seed, and when cooked, it has a slightly peppery, earthy flavor. You can pop it like popcorn, cook it as porridge, or grind it into flour. So why did amaranth vanish? The Spanish conquistadors actually banned it because it was used in Aztec religious ceremonies. They wanted to destroy indigenous culture, so they outlawed amaranth cultivation under penalty of death. That nearly wiped it out. Then, when industrial agriculture took over in the 1900s, amaranth didn't make the cut because the seeds are too small for mechanical harvesting equipment designed for wheat. By 1960, it had almost completely disappeared from North American agriculture. But now it's making a comeback because people are realizing this tiny seed is a nutritional powerhouse. Number 5, teff, which is the staple grain of Ethiopia and one of the oldest cultivated grains in the world. Teff grains are incredibly tiny, about the size of a poppy seed, and they come in different colors from white to deep brown. But don't let the size fool you. Teff is packed with nutrition. It's high in resistant starch, a type of fiber that acts like a prebiotic, feeding beneficial gut bacteria. It has more calcium than almost any other grain. It's an excellent source of iron, especially important for people at risk of anemia. Teff contains all 8 essential amino acids, making it a complete protein. And it's naturally high in vitamin C, which is extremely rare for a grain. Studies have shown that teff helps regulate blood sugar, making it excellent for diabetics. The resistant starch means it digests slowly, providing sustained energy without spikes and crashes. And populations that eat teff regularly have remarkably low rates of diabetes and heart disease. When cooked, teff has a mild, slightly molasses-like flavor, and it's traditionally used to make injera, the spongy Ethiopian flatbread. So why didn't teff become a staple worldwide? The grains are so tiny that they're difficult to harvest and process with standard equipment. They require specialized machinery. And teff is photosensitive, growing best in specific conditions that don't exist in most commercial farming regions. When the food industry standardized around wheat, rice, and corn in the mid-1900s, unusual grains like teff were abandoned. It didn't fit the industrial model, so it stayed confined to Ethiopia while the rest of the world missed out on its benefits. Number 6, millet, which is actually a group of several related grains that were staple foods across Africa and Asia for thousands of years. Pearl millet, finger millet, foxtail millet, and proso millet were all major food crops. Millet is naturally alkaline, which helps balance the body's pH and reduces inflammation. It's one of the few grains that's considered non-allergenic, making it safe for people with multiple food sensitivities. Millet is rich in magnesium, which is crucial for heart health, muscle function, and bone strength. It contains high levels of antioxidants, including catechins, which protect cells from damage. Studies show that regular millet consumption helps prevent diabetes, with compounds that improve insulin sensitivity. It's also high in tryptophan, an amino acid that converts to serotonin, supporting mood and sleep. Finger millet specifically is incredibly high in calcium, containing up to 30 times more calcium than rice. In parts of India where finger millet is eaten regularly, osteoporosis is virtually unknown. Millet has a mild, slightly sweet flavor and a texture that can range from fluffy like rice to creamy like mashed potatoes, depending on how it's cooked. So why did millet disappear from Western diets? By the 1960s, millet was considered animal feed in America. It was grown for birdseed, not human consumption. The grains are small and need specific processing, so they didn't fit industrial milling equipment, and there was a cultural bias against foods associated with poverty and traditional diets. As countries modernized, they abandoned their traditional grains in favor of wheat and rice, which were seen as more prestigious. But in your body, millet performs better than wheat or rice in almost every measurable way. Now, if you're starting to realize just how much we've lost and how much better these ancient grains are for your health, do me a favor. Hit that like button right now. It helps this information reach more people who need to hear it. And if you haven't subscribed yet, click that subscribe button and ring the bell. We're building a community of people who refuse to accept the processed food status quo, and I'd love to have you as part of it. Number 7, sorghum, which is one of the oldest known grains cultivated in Africa for over 5,000 years. Sorghum is naturally gluten-free, but still has excellent baking properties, making it one of the best wheat alternatives. It's exceptionally high in antioxidants, particularly tannins and phenolic compounds that fight inflammation and protect against cancer. Studies show that sorghum has higher antioxidant activity than blueberries. Certain varieties of sorghum contain compounds called polycosanols that significantly reduce cholesterol levels. Research has found that eating sorghum regularly can lower LDL cholesterol by up to 30%. Sorghum is also rich in iron, B vitamins, and fiber, and it has a low glycemic index, making it excellent for blood sugar control. The grain has a mild, slightly sweet flavor, and different varieties range from white to red to black. When popped, sorghum tastes like tiny popcorn. Ground into flour, it makes great flatbreads and pancakes. So why did sorghum disappear from American diets? By 1960, sorghum in the U.S. was almost exclusively grown for animal feed and ethanol production. The cultural perception was that sorghum was inferior to wheat. The grains require different processing than wheat, and the flour behaves differently in baking, which discouraged commercial use. As processed foods dominated grocery stores, there was no room for grains that required different handling. But in populations where sorghum remains a staple food, rates of heart disease, diabetes, and certain cancers are significantly lower than in populations eating modern processed grains. Number 8. Farro, which is actually a term that covers three ancient wheat species: einkorn, emmer, and spelt. When people talk about farro today, they usually mean emmer wheat specifically. Emmer was the grain that fed ancient Rome and Egypt. It's mentioned in ancient texts as the foundation of civilization. Farro is rich in protein, with more protein per serving than modern wheat. It contains high levels of magnesium, which most people are deficient in. It's an excellent source of iron and zinc, crucial for immune function. Farro is also rich in antioxidants called lignans, which have been shown to reduce risk of breast cancer, prostate cancer, and heart disease. The fiber in farro is a special type that feeds beneficial gut bacteria, improving digestive health and even mental health through the gut-brain connection. Studies have shown that people who eat farro regularly have better cholesterol profiles and lower rates of metabolic syndrome. The grain has a hearty, nutty flavor and a satisfying, chewy texture that makes it perfect for salads, soups, and grain bowls. So why did farro nearly disappear? Lower yields than modern wheat, more difficult processing, and the fact that it requires soaking before cooking, which meant it didn't fit the instant convenience culture that took over in the 1960s. As boxed, instant processed foods became the norm, grains that required any preparation were abandoned. But that preparation is part of what makes farro digestible. The soaking begins breaking down compounds that can irritate digestion, which is why traditional cultures always soaked their grains. Number 9. Barley, and specifically the hulled barley varieties that our ancestors ate. This is the one I mentioned at the start because of its incredible heart protective properties. Ancient hulled barley is completely different from the pearled barley you see in stores today. Hulled barley retains the bran and germ, making it a true whole grain packed with nutrition. It's one of the richest sources of beta-glucan, a type of soluble fiber that has been proven to lower cholesterol. Studies show that eating barley daily can reduce LDL cholesterol by 15 to 25%. Beta-glucan also helps control blood sugar, making barley one of the best grains for diabetics. Barley is rich in selenium, which is crucial for thyroid function and immune health. It contains high levels of copper, manganese, and B vitamins, and it has compounds called tocols that act as powerful antioxidants, protecting heart health and reducing inflammation. Populations that ate barley as a staple, like certain Mediterranean communities, had remarkably low rates of heart disease even when consuming high-fat diets. The barley protected them. The grain has a rich, nutty flavor and a chewy texture, and it can be used anywhere you'd use rice. So why did real barley disappear? By 1960, the barley in stores was almost entirely pearled, meaning the bran and germ were stripped away. Why? Because whole barley takes longer to cook, requires soaking, and doesn't have the long shelf life of pearled barley. The food industry prioritized convenience over nutrition, and as processed breakfast cereals and white rice took over, there was less demand for whole barley. But when you remove the bran and germ, you remove most of the nutrition and all of the heart-protective beta-glucan. Pearled barley is essentially empty calories compared to hulled barley. Number 10, buckwheat, which despite the name isn't wheat at all. It's a pseudo-grain related to rhubarb, and it's been a staple in Russia, Eastern Europe, and Asia for centuries. Buckwheat is naturally gluten-free and contains all 8 essential amino acids, making it a complete protein. It's exceptionally high in rutin, a flavonoid that strengthens blood vessels and improves circulation. Studies have shown that rutin from buckwheat can reduce blood pressure, prevent blood clots, and protect against varicose veins. Buckwheat is also rich in magnesium, which helps relax blood vessels and improve blood flow. Research has found that people who eat buckwheat regularly have significantly lower risk of diabetes. Buckwheat contains a compound called chiroinositol that mimics insulin, helping cells absorb glucose from the blood. It's high in resistant starch, which feeds beneficial gut bacteria and improves metabolic health. And buckwheat is one of the best sources of quercetin, a powerful antioxidant that reduces inflammation and may protect against cancer. The grain has a distinctive, earthy flavor that some people love and others find too strong. It's traditionally used to make soba noodles in Japan and kasha in Eastern Europe. So why did buckwheat nearly vanish from American diets? Cultural prejudice mainly. By the mid-1900s, buckwheat was associated with poverty and old-fashioned diets. As white flour and processed foods became symbols of modernity and affluence, traditional grains like buckwheat were abandoned. The strong flavor was seen as undesirable compared to mild, bland processed grains. And buckwheat doesn't behave like wheat in baking, which made it incompatible with industrial food production. By 1960, buckwheat had gone from a common crop to something most Americans had never tasted. Number 11, fricassee, which is wheat that's been harvested while still young and green, then roasted. This ancient process was discovered thousands of years ago in the Middle East. Fricassee has been a staple food in Lebanon, Syria, and Jordan for centuries. Because it's harvested young, fricassee is lower in carbohydrates and higher in protein and fiber than mature wheat. One serving has up to 4 times the fiber of brown rice. Fricassee is exceptionally high in lutein and zeaxanthin, antioxidants that protect eye health and may prevent macular degeneration. It has a low glycemic index, making it excellent for blood sugar control. Studies show that fricassee keeps you feeling full longer than other grains, which can help with weight management. The roasting process creates unique flavor compounds, giving fricassee a distinctive, smoky, nutty taste that's absolutely delicious. It's rich in prebiotic fiber that feeds beneficial gut bacteria, supporting digestive health and immune function. And because it's harvested young, fricassee contains more minerals that haven't yet been fully depleted by the maturing plant. So why did fricassee disappear? The production process is labor-intensive. The wheat must be harvested at exactly the right moment when it's still green, then carefully roasted without burning. This doesn't fit industrial agriculture, which wants everything uniform and mechanized. By the 1960s, as farming became more industrialized, processes that required timing, skill, and hand labor were abandoned in favor of methods that could be fully mechanized. Fricassee didn't fit that model, so it stayed confined to traditional Middle Eastern communities while the rest of the world missed out. And finally, number 12, the grain I've been saving for last, quinoa. Now you might be thinking, wait, quinoa is everywhere now. But that's recent. From the 1960s through the early 2000s, quinoa was virtually unknown outside the Andean region of South America. And here's why it belongs on this list. Quinoa is one of the most nutritionally complete foods on Earth. It's a complete protein with all 9 essential amino acids in perfect ratios. A single cup of cooked quinoa provides 8 grams of protein and 5 grams of fiber. But here's what makes quinoa extraordinary. It's higher in calcium than milk, higher in iron than beef, and loaded with magnesium, potassium, zinc, and B vitamins. Quinoa contains powerful anti-inflammatory compounds called saponins that protect heart health. Studies have shown that quinoa helps reduce blood pressure, lower cholesterol, and regulate blood sugar. It's rich in quercetin and kaempferol, antioxidants that fight disease at the cellular level. Quinoa is naturally gluten-free and easier to digest than almost any other grain. It has a low glycemic index despite being a carbohydrate source, and populations that ate quinoa as a staple, like the Inca, were known for extraordinary health and endurance. The grain has a mild, slightly nutty flavor and a unique texture that's light and fluffy. So why did quinoa vanish from the global food supply? When Spanish colonizers arrived in South America, they suppressed indigenous foods in favor of European crops. Quinoa was associated with native religions, so the Spanish actively discouraged its cultivation. For centuries, quinoa was confined to high-altitude Andean communities, too remote to be affected by colonization. Then, as the global food system industrialized in the 1900s, the focus was on wheat, rice, and corn. Quinoa didn't fit existing agricultural infrastructure. It grows best at high altitudes in cool conditions that don't exist in major farming regions. And there was no cultural awareness or demand. By 1960, quinoa was virtually unknown outside of Peru and Bolivia, but in the last 20 years, as people became aware of its incredible nutrition, quinoa has exploded in popularity. It's proof that these ancient grains can make a comeback when people demand real nutrition over convenient processed foods. So there you have it, 12 ancient grains that prevent disease, that fed civilizations for millennia, that contain nutrition far superior to modern processed grains. Grains that were abandoned not because they were inferior, but because they didn't fit the industrial food model that took over after 1960. Here's what I want you to understand. The disappearance of these grains wasn't an accident. It was the result of deliberate choices made by governments, agricultural corporations, and food manufacturers who prioritized profit over health. They wanted crops that could be grown, harvested, processed, and shipped using the same equipment and methods. They wanted grains that could sit on shelves for years without spoiling. They wanted uniformity, efficiency, and control, and they got it. But we lost biodiversity, we lost nutrition, we lost flavors and culinary traditions that had developed over thousands of years, and we lost the health protection that these grains provided. So here's my challenge to you. Pick 3 grains from this list, order them online, or find them at a health food store. Learn how to cook them properly, because most of these grains benefit from soaking or special preparation. Start replacing processed foods with these ancient grains, and then pay attention to how you feel. I guarantee you'll notice changes. Your energy will be more stable, your cravings will decrease, your digestion will improve, and you'll start to understand what real food is supposed to feel like in your body. If this information opened your eyes and made you question what you've been told about food and health, smash that like button. It helps this message reach more people who need to hear it. Drop a comment below and tell me which ancient grain you're most excited to try. Have you already discovered any of these? What was your experience? I read every comment and I love hearing your stories. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss future videos. We're building a community here of people who refuse to accept processed food as normal, who want real nutrition, and who aren't afraid to go against mainstream food culture. We're bringing back the wisdom that kept people healthy before the industrial food system took over. Until next time, eat real food, question everything you've been told, and remember that the best nutrition often comes from the oldest sources. Your ancestors knew what they were doing. It's time we listened. I'll see you in the next video.